50%, and his team have consistently generated profits towards their bottom line. So Richard will be talking to you in a very short time, but just to begin with, I'm going to take you through the agenda for this evening. So this is what we're going to be covering, or this is what Richard will be covering. So as you can see there, we'll be looking at numbers, suppliers, waste, staffing, and we'll also finish with a case study. And we'll also have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of the session. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat at any point throughout the session. Just type them in there. I'll be able to pick them, and I'll be able to hopefully pose those to Richard at the end. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to hand over to my colleague Alex, because just before Richard starts, we're going to start with a poll. So Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. And that poll is with you now. What is your role at the club? It'd be good to know who you've got there. It's sort of the first time we've sort of delved into this area of bar management and sort of facility management. So we're interested to see who's come to join us. So are you a bar manager, facilities manager, the chair of the club, secretary, treasurer, or if it's other, could you let us know in the chat what you are? Because, you know, it'd be really interesting for us to find this out. So most people have completed it now. I'm just going to give you a bit more time. You can see a few more coming in there. It's great to see people in the chat telling us what they are. So last little chance, and I'm going to end that poll now. And I'll share those results with you. So we've got a real good mix here this evening. We've got quite a few bar managers, 20% as the highest, but, you know, facility managers, chairs, treasurers really being high, but a whole host of others in there as well. So very interesting who's joining us this evening. And without further ado, I'll stop sharing that and I'll pass you over to our main event this evening with Richard taking you through this webinar.
Hello and good evening, everybody. So the aim of today's webinar is to look at what for most clubs is likely to be the biggest source of revenue for the club. That's the bar. We're not particularly going to be looking at marketing, sales initiatives or events to get higher footfall. We're going to be looking at areas of improvement that can be brought in right now to make a significant difference to your bottom line. I may be saying some very obvious stuff here, and I can see from the poll we've just done, we've got some really experienced operators probably in here already tonight. And I'm sure we've got clubs online who have run fantastic bar operations with healthy profits. I'll just be drawing on my own experiences and successes and mistakes that we've made over the years. I would hope that if you take away one or two nuggets of information or ideas for improvements in your setup, that you will have gained something from the presentation. And of course, as Martin said, please use the chat function to chip in with your experiences, suggestions, and any questions. So why are we concentrating on the bar? Because it's usually where the biggest numbers are in the club turnover. All clubs, of course, are different. And here I'm just demonstrating a typical, maybe a typical medium-sized club split of income. Your club may be very different in terms of split down here, down at the bottom. But I'm pretty certain the biggest revenue generator is going to be your bar. It's also worth pointing out that, again, that for most clubs, the money brought in from rugby does not cover the cost of running rugby. So that, of course, is why we run the bar, and we want them to be successful revenue generators. So the first area we're going to look at is the bar gross profit margin. I'm just going to put the definition of the sort of industry definition of it. It's the total sales minus the cost of those sales, the cost of the product itself. So not the staff or anything like that, just the cost of the product. And we're just dividing that by the total sales. And that's going to give you what's called the GP margin as a percentage. I'm just going to now, we're just going to throw in our next poll almost straight away, because we're just going to try and get a feel of what everyone's GP margin is. So back over to Alex for the next poll.
So that poll's with you now. And it is, what is your club's gross profit margin on bar sales? 60% or higher, 50 to 60%, less than 50%, or you don't know. Just let us know what you think. It might not be your area. Certainly, if you can't see the poll, hopefully you can see the slide on the screen and add your answers into that chat. That's always the backup function. If you haven't used it before, or you can't find anything, the chat is always the good backup function there. So last few seconds just to get these last ones in. Thank you, Roland Rutherford. Put it in the chat. That's the backup if you can't see the poll. So I'm going to close that one there now. And I'll share those results with you. And as you can see there, the vast majority are 50 to 60%, 37% there, 24%, 60% or higher, less than 15%, 16%. And there's quite a few that don't know. So I'll stop sharing that now and pass you back to Richard.
Okay, thanks for that. That is an interesting spread. We can talk through that. Why are we doing it? These are the big numbers. So let's take a typical bar turnover of, say, 250,000 with a GP of 55%. If we can shift that GP up by just 1%, that's going to add an immediate £2,500 to your bottom line. They're the big numbers. They're the big numbers in your accounts and in the club. If you've got a GP down at 52%, you can move it up to 56%. That's 10 grand on your bottom line on that turnover. So it's a big number, and that's why we're concentrating primarily on it. How are we going to move these big numbers? Well, yeah, we can get the sales up, or we can get the cost of the product down. So we noticed in there, we've got in the poll, we've got quite a few don't knows. And we've got 60% plus. That's great. That's looking good. 60% is probably a good industry target. That's why we put that in there. Each club's different. Of course, 50 to 60%, you're in the range. You're probably doing okay. If you're at the lower end towards 50%, you've certainly got scope for some improvements. You maybe can shake things up a bit in a few areas. If you're below 50%, you maybe need to look at resetting that target. And getting that up a bit. But the big one is, if you don't know, I appreciate there's maybe some people in the seminar who are not actually directly involved. It's possibly why you don't know. But if you really don't know in your club what your gross profit margin is, you need to find it out. It's the starting point. It's the key bit. How are we going to find it out? So good business practice. We owe it to our members to run our bar function professionally. Look at your till system or your electronic point of sale system. Even if you have a basic till system, is it giving you the sales information you need? Do your staff know how to operate it correctly? Are they keying in the correct products and charging the correct prices? If you have, say, a generic guest beer product key on the till at a set price, you don't change it, and then you buy in a guest beer at a different and higher strength, the price you could be selling at is underselling it. If your staff consistently miskey a higher price product and sell it low price, it's going to be hit that GP. If you have a more sophisticated EPOS system with stock tracking, is it set up correctly? As far as possible, make sure you are selling at product level and they're linked to the correct ingredient in the stock model. I'll demonstrate in a bit. We have a volunteer who spends a couple of hours a week inputting our deliveries into the EPOS stock module. Review your till system and consider who's running it and whether you need to invest in a better one. It could be a good investment. Do you regularly stock take? Again, consider a professional stock taker to do it once a month. A professional stock taker can give you your GP figure within hours of your month end. And if you have an EPOS system with product level, they're also going to highlight your GP at product level, your miskeying and your waste figure, and they'll highlight your miskeying and your waste figure, which we'll come on to talk about later. Do you do management accounts, and how often? Good practice should be monthly management accounts for your club. Knowledge is key, and so is control and ownership. Again, on that basis, the biggest revenue stream in the club, it's vital that someone's in charge and takes responsibility. Who is the bar steward responsible to? Who is training the staff? Who is taking responsibility? So This is what I talked about at product level EPOS system. We've got our couple of beers at the top there. It's just a sample. And that's giving us that sales figure, the cost of the sales, the GP, and the margin. Anything in yellow is below 60%. Anything in green is above. You can see with gins, spirits, soft drinks, you can usually achieve quite a high GP. Your beers, lower, and maybe your wines at the moment, they're struggling to get them into the country. Next slide I've got here is, this is a typical, we literally do this on the Monday of each week. So after a week's trading finishing on Sunday, we're just coming out with a quick KPI. The information is there in the EPOS system. You can also add in your labor costs as well from your timesheet. So it's week by week, you can build up a picture and you can have target KPIs. So first thing to look at, once we've got that knowledge, you know what your GP is, what can you do immediately to increase turnover, improve your GP? It may sound blindingly obvious, but don't be afraid to put up your prices. Don't be afraid to charge what you need to charge to make a decent margin. As we've seen on the previous slide, certain products such as soft drinks and spirits can have a much higher GP compared to draft beer. There's some great tools on the market for, not even on the market, they're free on the internet. You've got apps and GP profit calculators. And here's just an example of one I plugged in earlier. On the left-hand side, I'm buying a 9-gallon cask beer. It's costing me £80. That's that, and I'm looking at 60% GP. Plug it all in, it's telling me straight away I should be selling at £3.33. I put it in at £3.50, and I'm getting a GP there of 62%. I buy a heavier, a stronger cask ale the next week. If I don't change my selling price, if I've just got one generic key on my till at £3.50, my GP drops straight away. So these little tools are out there on the internet. You can get them to very quickly start checking all your prices are correct. Don't listen to the bar rats. What am I talking about here? I'm sure we've all got that dirty dozen of regulars who sit in the bar and, let's face it, contribute quite a decent proportion of profits, but also contribute 90% of the opinions. Ride out the storm and stick to your guns. As long as you're getting other aspects of your bar service right, such as ambience, quality, service, the pricing should not be as big an issue as you might think. Of course, what you've got to do is you've got to benchmark, know your market. You've got to have a look around. Are you positioning yourself correctly in your area compared with the local pubs, the local other sports clubs? You can't go crazy on this, but get that pricing right for you and what you need. I'm just going to talk here about discounts as well. Many clubs have discount cards for benefits, discount cards for members. It's a great benefit of being a member. But also, they're going to erode your GP, and you're going to have to build that into your pricing, and that's fine. But also, you need to keep control of that discount. If the card gives a straight discount, do you expire them when a member leaves or doesn't pay? Are they handed around the bar like confetti, giving it to all and sundry at a discount? All that's going to drive that GP down. If your system can do it, consider giving discounts to members only if they have money on the card. So they charge the card as they go into the bar each week, and then to pay for their round of drinks, they take it off card. Many golf clubs do it. You've probably seen them. If you've got money on that card, they're much less likely to be banded and passed around the bar. People are going to keep them more in their possession. We've agonized for years about doing this, and after the reopening, after lockdown, it gave us the perfect opportunity to do it because we got scanners and they became contactless. We rolled it out, and I'm pretty sure we've not had a single complaint about the new system. And one final other advantage, of course, we've then got a bit of cash flow extra as well as members put money on the cards. And one final one I just throw in here as well is premium pricing, actually looking the other way. If you've got functions and a separate function facility, you might be doing weddings, parties, maybe you could put the pricing up in that area. I must admit, it's something we've not dared do. If you get the members are in the party, but it's something to think about. It's there. It's a possibility. Maybe a step too far. So growing your sales through quality. I mentioned quality before in relation to price and how pricing then become a secondary issue if the quality of the offer is right. Think about your range. Make sure you cover the basics and the local tastes. I believe in the Midlands you have to have Carling on, wherever you are in the Midlands, don't know, might not be right. Make sure you cover the basics though. We'll talk about waste in relation to this later, but too wide a range can be just be expensive. You can create non-moving stock. You can tie cash up. A couple of premium lagers, a cooking lager, a crafty lager or an IPA, a keg bitter, maybe a session cask ale, and then a nice guest beer, and maybe unique Guinness as well. That's already, I've counted there, about 9 or 10 different lines, but that's a decent, manageable range. Cleanliness, hygiene, quality offer. Again, it's about that ownership of your bar and pride in your operation. If you've got a great offer and you're looking smart, you've got the correct range, people are going to come back and they're going to like to be in your bars. So we've looked at how we can increase turnover briefly. We're also, the other side of the coin is how can we just decrease costs? We've got different supplier choices. We can control the stock. We can control waste. And also we need to look at controlling fraud. So we're just going to hand you back to Alex now. We're just going to go in for our next poll. And so it's back over to you, Alex.
So we're looking at bar products for this one. So how do you source your bar products? Is it one brewery supplier, one wholesaler, cash and carry, or is it a combination of above? Remember, if you cannot see the chat function for any reason, sorry, the poll for any reason, then use the chat function. We certainly do want to hear from you, though, how you're doing things. It's good to see and good to share, to see what other clubs do. And there seems to be a very clear winner on this one. I'm just going to give it this last little bit of time for the last ones to come in. But there is definitely a clear winner. So I'm going to add the poll there. And it's quite clear. It's a combination of all of the above, with a brewery, wholesaler, and cash and carry. That's clearly the winner there with 88%. Over to you, Richard.
Thanks. That's really interesting to me. That's a really interesting result on that, because the bit I'm going to talk about, the bit I experiences of, and it may be that this then is useful to you, is I'm going to talk about the breweries. Sorry, I've lost pressed the wrong button there. The next slide is the brewery sponsorship deals. So you've got some people there have got combinations of things. So you may be getting stuff from breweries, going off to cash and carries and everything like that. Maybe it's primarily a brewery deal. But the one I have most experience, and that's what I'm going to talk about, it is a brewery sponsorship deal and what the advantages would be of those. The first one is they want your business. Post-COVID, they have a lot of making up to do, as we all have. Rugby clubs are seen as a great profile target customer for breweries, and they're probably surviving better than the pub trade. The structure of a brewery deal is generally they'll give you a cash sum up front in the form of sponsorship, and then they will give you a set price list to buy from. And they should have a great range of products to choose from. And I'll say a discounted price list that goes with their deal. There'll be targets in there. So you will have a target barrelage for the year. They'll usually wrap up all your other alcohol purchases like wines and spirits, even your soft drinks, into that target, and convert those purchases and mark them against your target. So after you've hit your target, there could be further retros and incentives for you as well. So make sure the target's realistic and maximize your purchases through them. And that's where I was interested that people had spread how they do it. If you've got a brewery with a target, You can use them as a single player. You should be able to get everything off it and off them, and it's going to help towards your target. It should make life easier and more efficient. It's one order a week, one delivery a week. So shop around the breweries, see who's offering the best deal, but also who's the best fit for you, and what other extras can they add on to the deal as well. They should include all the cellar equipment and cellar services. So from the barrel to the dispense point in the bar, usually owned by the brewery. They maintain it. They give free tech support, and it's in their interests to look after that equipment so that their product is right when it comes out at the other end. And if you change breweries, they have a national deal which where the equipment just transfers to the new brewery. And they, in general, also give free training on anything from looking after cask beer, managing your cellar, to customer service, pouring drinks correctly. So use it. You know, it's there and it's there to be used. And they also offer point of sale stuff, beer mats, but not that. They have quite valuable hidden benefits as well in terms of support. So account support, it can be a real bonus on your deal. All the equipment we needed for our beer festival was supplied free of charge by our brewery as part of their deal. So you can see on the screen there, that's a 60 barrel cask ale bar. Every barrel is on a tilting stillage. Each one's got its own hand pull, and they're chilled to temperature with remote coolers. Looked fantastic, immaculate. When you walked into the beer festival, it's that wow factor that we got, and that was all provided free of charge in the brewery deal. Disadvantages: well, once you sign the deal, you can't shop around. You are limited to what your supplier can supply you with, but you should have done your homework first. They usually, of course, do cross supply with other breweries, so you can say get Heineken from Carlsberg Marston's, but they're likely to charge a premium for the products that aren't their own, they're not brewing. So look at your price list, try to stick with your own brewery's own products, or products they might have the license for. So you should find that those prices are being the most competitive with your cash and carry option, and your brewer will be more happy for you to have all their own range and offer and can give you better support options for them. Again, I said it was an advantage. It can be a disadvantage rate of products, and similarly, the once a week delivery from the brewery. If you're going to your cash and carry, or you've got a local wholesale supplier, they may deliver daily or get you emergency deliveries. So get your ordering right, keep your stock right. Shouldn't be a problem. So the final thing I'd say on those supplier deals is respect the deal. If you've got a deal, you signed a brewery deal, there's two sides to the bargain. Try to resist the temptation to go off tie. It could affect your targets and delay your next sponsorship payment. And your brewery will probably find out. Build a relationship, pay on time, work with your supplier. You'll get so much more out of them. Look at your range and try to just stick to the products that your brewer deals with. So, pouring profits down the drain. What are we talking about here? Those of a nervous disposition, look away now. It's waste. It breaks your heart. Oh no. This was us at the end of lockdown having to pour away the beer. Obviously, it's a bit of exaggeration, but pouring away the beer that we couldn't sell. But of course, the whole barrels we got refunded the duty through the duty scheme from the government. And inevitably, you've got some waste in your bar operation. So what are the reasons for waste? You've also got pull through, the start of service, line cleaning, probably one of the bigger ones, spillage, missed pours, poor quality and hygiene, poor stock control, and of course, fraud or theft. So what can we do to minimize waste? Line clean timing. Well, lines need to be cleaned. They've got to be cleaned. They're usually weekly, and depending on the length of your lines, this is likely to be your biggest waste. There are some things you can do to minimize that. If your line clean day is, say, a Monday and a barrel of product runs out on a Sunday evening, get the bar staff to be thinking about just not putting a new barrel on, just put the line on water and just stop selling it for the last half hour. You know, people will understand. Think about your range. So I talked about this before. If you have a massive wide range, every line has to be clean. So don't overdo that range again. Look at making sure you've just got the right range across the board. If you want a guest beer, say you're doing cask ale and you have it at the weekend, you want to know that you can get through the whole thing. 9-gallon cask of real ale is about 70 pints. Well looked after, it could last for 7 days, but it all needs to be drunk. So just be wary of those. You could end up pouring away half a barrel. Look at some of the local craft breweries, for instance. They do small barrels called pins or bag in a box even for real ale. Training your staff. So again, you can get the brewery to come in, or your suppliers, or you can get someone with some really good knowledge to show them how to pour the perfect pint. There should be very little in the drip trays from pouring the line. If your dispense equipment's working properly, your staff are trained, even with cask ale, there should be very little in the drip trays. Clean glassware. Train your staff to clean your glassware properly. Look at your glass wash machines. Are they working? An unclean glass can kill the quality of draft beer, and you may well have it handed back, or you may well be losing sales if that beer's not good enough. I'm going. It's really important, all those little things, all those stuff. And using correct measures. Again, optics, maybe instead of jiggers, so you're giving the correct spirit measure. And consider single serve wines from the bottle instead of wine by the glass, so you're not ending up with a number of open bottles of wine going off. It's also harder to measure. So we definitely do single serve for all glasses of wine. So the next one, how to minimize fraud. Fraud, or let's call it what it is, theft. I'm talking about this in the waste section because this is how it might appear in your figures. Your GP will be lower than expected if money is being skimmed off. There could be a shortfall in your monthly stock take if drinks are being handed out free of charge. I was told, this is a bit of a, maybe an urban myth, but a story from somebody in the hospitality industry with lots of experience, who basically said of the people who are working in it, 1/3 of them were honest, absolutely honest, trust them. 1/3 were passively dishonest, i.e. given an opportunity, they might slip an extra tenner in their pocket from short change people, whatever. But 1/3 are actively dishonest. In other words, they're looking to exploit their position and see little scams and loopholes and consider it as an entitlement within their job. Skimming the change, passing their friends drinks. We've already talked about EPOS systems, and these have a big part in controlling your waste and controlling your fraud, sorry. They can have layers of supervision. We have integrated chip and pin machines, so that the transaction goes straight to the chip and pin. We never get an issue with chip and pin. End of day reconciliation and reporting facilities. Take temptation away and keep tight control. This is the bit about ownership, recording what you're doing. Are the cashing up controls in place? In other words, just try to take away as much possibilities of fraud as you can out of the system. We get bar spillage. We get the bar spillage wastage sheet filled in every day, enters through the EPOS. It's just a visible thing that staff can see that we're monitoring and understanding the reasons why we're doing it. So we've talked about the big two numbers, the gross profit, increasing sales through better quality, decreasing the cost by looking at where you purchase, everything like that. The other big cost, obviously, is staff costs. So I'm just going to hand back again to Alex, I think, for our final poll, and this one's on staff costs. So back over to you, Alex.
Thanks very much. So that poll is with you now. So it's interesting for us to find out, how do you staff your bar? Is it an employed manager? It's a whole paid service with paid staff as well, a mixture with a bar manager and some paid staff, but also some volunteers in there. Is it one paid manager with the rest volunteers, or is it all volunteers of your club? As I say, if you can't see that poll, add it to the chat there for me. So you're getting used to this. This is the last poll of the evening. So I'll just give that last bit of chance to get things in, but we've got most people there that have come back in there. So I'm going to finish that now. And I'll share those results with you. So it's an interesting one for the people that are on this call this evening. 56% an employed bar manager, and all paid staff is the highest. And then we've got a bit of a mixture there, Richard, to take note of. So back to you, Richard.
Yeah, that's great. That is interesting again. Yeah. So just moving on to the next thing. Whatever your staffing model, really, the more volunteers you have, it's all volunteers. It's all about who has responsibility, who has ownership, and if it's employed staff, again, it's supervision and training of them. As we've probably said at the start, these are probably the biggest numbers in the club. Someone needs to be in charge. Someone needs to implement the necessary changes and controls and get the most out of your asset. Who's responsible for cashing up? Who's responsible for ordering, doing the rotas, the training, and the hygiene? Interesting, we do have volunteers. A lot of clubs, small clubs especially, have the volunteers, and that's great. And we should value the volunteers. And here's Jim, one of our great volunteers. He volunteered at the beer festival. Of course, we gave him some free beer. We also gave him a free glass. We gave him a free T-shirt, and we even gave him a wristband. So it looked like it was a proper festival. He felt part of it. We didn't say help yourself to the beer. We just gave him beer tokens. We didn't supply the glasses though, these glasses. So we're just going to wrap up now with a case study, and this is our solution to the last 2 summers when we came out of lockdown. What could we do? Well, what we did was we did a pop-up pub. And it was called we called it the Social Distance Inn at Hoppers. And at the start, we actually used it to implement some of the changes I've talked about. So we reset the prices to the correct GP. We reduced our range to reduce waste. And we also, it was at that point where we stopped giving the discount cards, and it was actually the second summer, and we put charge cards in only. So we used it as an opportunity there. What we did, of course, first mainly it was outside. We had some shelters up. We had and we did pub grub basically. We got the chefs doing we did a menu, pick off a menu, cook to order, serve to the table. We were open 7 days a week. Did it work? Yes, it brought trade in. We could take staff off furlough. It kept us alive, kept us going. The food was tricky. It was tricky to turn a profit on that. But on the bar, we made money, and the food really was the draw. So would we do it again? Now, that's different. That's difficult. And I would say no, we probably wouldn't, but not exactly in the same way again. It's a completely different animal cooking that way. We lost chefs. The food, we struggled to make a profit sometimes. And the food was definitely a draw, though, and it did bring trade into the bar and bar profits. But were we busy fools? Were we making hard work for ourselves? So that's what we look at. We needed to offer a consistent high standard. It took a lot of managing and a lot of supervising. Very different from running a rugby club. We were running a bar, we were running a pub, restaurant almost. I'd probably do the same again, but with outside concessions doing the food. Fish and chip Friday, maybe on a Friday, pizza van on a Saturday, maybe a hog roast on a Sunday. So it's a little bit about sticking to what you know in the future, which was very interesting. So, we're throwing it out there, an open-ended question on learning points in the pandemic as well in the chat function. What did you learn from those? So just to wrap up, a final thing, summarising maybe 5 key takeaways that I hope maybe you've got something out of tonight. Knowledge is key. Measure and know your GP weekly, monthly, and measure your waste. Pricing, price it right. Don't be afraid to put your prices at the level you need to turn a profit, and control the discount. Quality. Price resistance becomes secondary if the quality is right. Make your offer the best you can. Keep your lines clean, keep your glasses clean, smarten your bar up, get the ambience right, Control your stock and your waste. Stock take monthly, control the ordering level, don't overstock. Think about your range, keep it manageable. Think about your supply chain and suppliers. And have you got the best deal? Are you making the most of the deals that you've got? And finally, ownership and responsibility. Who is taking responsibility? Who is training and controlling the staff? Who is responsible for the money? If there's a clear sense of responsibility and purpose, fraud and waste will drop. Rugby's renowned for its hospitality. Think of it as our unique selling point, our USP. Just strive to get that quality and service and product right, and the ambience and feel in your club as best as you can make it. I know. So now, okay, it's over to you and over to the Q&A. Martin, are you coming in on this?
I'm indeed, Richard. So thank you for that, guys. Please keep the messages and the comments coming in, the questions coming in via the chat. I'm now going to try and go through these. It's dynamic, so I'll try and work through it as we can. We did have some submitted beforehand. So Richard, I'll let you get a quick drink so you can refresh. We've got
the perfect serve. We've got the right glass and the right product in the right glass.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't, and I hope that goes for all of you. It is 20 to 8 after all. So Richard, there's an interesting question come out from Carl, and he said they've looked at an EPOS system, and he's interested in the key advantages of this. Can you use the EPOS system for your kitchen and your shop sales as well? So great to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yes, we got an EPOS system which had what's called a kitchen printer in it. So it chunters out the orders in the kitchen. We did use that over the last 2 summers. We can put all our products, kitchen service products on. So we generally serve food out the hatch on match days. All those are on there. And also, we use it in the shop as well for selling our shop products, shirts, etc. So it can be extended beyond the bar.
Okay, that's great to hear. And again, we can potentially put links into the chat following and the follow-up on that. Richard, there's a question here which I'll sort of cut through, but it's an interesting one. Talks about improving margins and so on, touches on the things you've mentioned in terms of wastage. And there's a question about how much drinks do clubs pull through, or would you suggest how much drinks do clubs pull through before they start serving in terms of that wastage, just as an indicative level?
I think this question came in earlier and I rang our bar manager. It does depend obviously on the length of your line, i.e. the distance from cellar to bar, but in keg lines, we find it's virtually nothing. We've got them insulated right up to the tap. So again, it's that install that we got from the brewery, really good system with remote coolers, with virtually nothing on the keg line. So your lagers, your ciders. Cask beer, again, it does depend on that length, but again, we just 1 pint pull off. So very low wastage on that.
That's a good indication. Michelle, question from you. Is this recorded? Yes, it is recorded. And Alex, I can see the recording button in the corner. So it is recorded. It will be posted on our YouTube channels. You'll have the links. You'll be able to see it. You'll be able to go over it. You'll be able to look at the information and so on. There's a few comments been put in around EPOS as an example there from Danny. And I know that there are different options out there, guys. So if you do have one that is helpful and you really like it, then feel free to recommend it. I'm just going to go through another couple of questions. So bear with me 1 second while I get to that.
I've got one here.
Yes, go for it.
Adam Prickett, Newby RFC. Keen to know about ideal target for gross net margins on wet and dry sales. So I think wet we've covered, and it was a rule of thumb sort of across the industry of 60%, but you could go lower, or you might have to go lower if you want to compete with other sports clubs, working men clubs. And if you've got volunteer labour, then you've got free labour, so your margin there is massively improved. But 60% seems to be general the industry standard. The dry sales, less info on that, but again, as I say, we did run it, and we came out, our ingredient content costs was about 30%, so that was giving a 70% GP on cost of sales minus the ingredient content, which could be, I think, was possibly high, but our labour figure was high too. It was both in the kitchen and the waiting staff to the table. Is there another question? I think we've got a question. How do you guys manage getting in staff? That search is a great question. We've struggled. Yeah, we've struggled. We've got one chef we brought out of retirement. We've managed to really rebuild our bar staff. A lot of our bar staff tend to be the children of members. So getting towards the 18, 19-year-olds. And that's great because they don't tend to mess you around as much if mum or dad are a member. But yeah, it's been a struggle. We advertising, Facebook advertising, word of mouth, but just trying to build that team of young, enthusiastic kids with some connection to the club. We usually find that works. But if anyone else can tell me how to get a chef, please let me know.
Richard, another question for you here. How did you move from match days to a 7-day operation?
Well, I suppose the match day just stopped in March 2020. And yeah, it was basically, what can we do? We just came up with the idea of this pop-up pub. It was rejig the kitchen. The chef came up with a menu, which kind of worked. But yeah, it was a real change, and we learned some massive it was a massive learning curve. The management and supervision of a 7-day operation was quite intense. You can't really stop. People message you on Facebook, what time are you opening? We introduced a table booking system. Gosh, it was an awful lot of work. And as I say, on reflection, would we do that again? I'm not sure that we would, and I'm not sure that is what we're set up to do. And then also now we've gone back to match day, and functions, sort of parties. It's a different setup in the kitchen, so the kitchen isn't suited to doing both. So we've stopped doing the menu, mainly because we didn't have the chefs. Let's say in the summer we're just going to look again at how we do that and whether it is bought-in concessions that are the answer to that.
Okay, thanks. Richard, I wonder whether it's worth just sort of stopping the sharing on the screen now so people can sort of see you as you're answering these questions. So I think that's handy. There's questions, and there are millions of questions coming in, which is great. Is it realistically viable looking towards smaller local breweries to compare the deals between, two larger breweries, for example? What's your experience on that?
One of the deals we looked at but didn't go with was with a national who had linked with a local, not a microbrewery, but one of the bigger locals, but not a massive brewery, no way a national one. So a good local brand. So they'd done a joint venture. So we could get the national brands from the national brewery, and we could get that local provenance, if you like, of a local beer. We didn't go with them because the range didn't suit us of the national brands, if you like. And in the deal that we have at the moment, we do have written in there that we can go off tie, if you like, and get the occasional guest beer in, because that's what the members want. They want some of those local brewers. So that's a way of around that, of doing that.
Excellent, thank you. There's a comment on staff employment, and I'm just going to use this opportunity just to plug. We've got some webinars over the coming months, which will be working on the legal side of employment, and I would encourage you all to join those, particularly on areas of issues in and around employment and what may happen if you do have problems and so on and so forth. So just a little plug for us. So please do look out for that. Details will be out. But Richard, on that topic, there's a question about, do you employ staff on a self-employed basis?
No, not on a self-employed basis, but more or less on 0 hours contracts effectively. So they have it's not a contract of employment, because for most of the staff it's 6, 10, 12 hours a week. But no, they're not self-employed. They're all on payroll. They're all paid PAYE, but it's effectively a 0 hours contract. I wonder if the RFU have a model contract for that, Martin? Maybe that's something you can pick up on that next seminar.
But generally speaking, we'd be very mindful of looking at self-employed staff. For bar staff would be generally where we would be considering. Richard, there's a question here just seen come in. How many people staff work within your bar environment, not casual or permanent? So basically, what's your sort of split between permanent and casual staff, really?
Well, in the bar we have one permanent senior barman and the rest are casual staff, but some get 30 hours a week, so it's and some get just literally there for match days or functions on a Friday. Above that we have an operations manager who looks after bar and kitchen, so there's a permanent staff member above that, a permanent manager and a permanent bar staff, and no, the rest are on casual basis.
Okay, excellent. Guys, are there any more questions? I'm sort of getting questions across a number of different platforms, so I'm trying to multitask, but like most chaps, I'm not the greatest at that. You can see that Alex has put into the chat there, legal document service with Irwin Mitchell and our legal partners, and you can go onto that portal, you can download those for free, and there is a helpline as well, should you require, wanting to talk to someone. You can see Alex has put that legal helpline on there. Feel free to call that, and there's a triage where the guys will talk you through what the issues could well be and so on and so forth. Ian, the app for the Android, we'll look into that. Unfortunately, I've got an Apple device. There are a couple of apps on the Android. We've had a look on the website, but I'm struggling to get them across onto the link for you. But we will follow that up. So Ian, don't worry, we have seen that. As Richard mentioned, most of these apps are relatively simple and straightforward because it's just a simple sort of calculation in the background and so on. The one we shown on screen is free and it's very, very straightforward. Also, Alex is putting onto the chat there sort of developing sort of commercial revenue and so on. So have a look at our web pages on running your club. Some really helpful just tips and guidance and so on. And just going back to your point, Richard, regarding the contract. No, we don't have a model contract. It's not something we have. We focus on the roles within the clubs rather than the actual individual employment contracts because they're so complex and it's hard for us to sort of put something template out there. So guys, it's now 10 to 8. I think it's been really helpful, and I've learned lots as well. I've got a couple of last questions. One is, would you recommend cashing up after each shift or at the end of the weekend?
We cash up at the end of each night, so not at the end of the weekend. Yeah, your biggest night might be Saturday. By the time you get to Monday, say, to cash up. Yeah, at the end of each night we do it, or you could do it at the end of each shift if you have a total shift change. Shift manager goes on and off because again, it's responsibility. Who's responsible for that? We do it as a blind count, so they don't get the answer, if you know what I mean, from the till system. If you tell them what the answer is, they make the numbers fit the answer. So it's what's called a blind count or a blind reconciliation.
Thank you. So Alex has put into the chat there. We'll do a follow-up post webinar. Thank you, everybody. Richard, thank you so much for all your help and advice there. Guys, lots to take over. There's some really helpful things within the chat, talking amongst yourselves and so on, which we really encourage you to carry on doing where you can. So thank you. Richard, just over to you to say a final thank you and goodbye.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much.
So cheers, everybody. Have a good evening and hope to see you on the legal webinar one in the future. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.